Welcome to the Harsch Review, a film and television review podcast. This is the 22nd episode. I'm your host, Ryan, and with me is my brother, Sean.
What's going on, everybody?
How's everybody doing? Looks like I caught a little bit of what you had, Sean, last week.
Uh-oh, are you sick?
A little bit. Kind of seeped through the airwaves, I'm assuming, so.
I'm sorry to hear that.
That's all right. I came down with a little something, but I decided to man up and, get on the microphone here and make this podcast happen.
Yeah, that's the Harsch brother attitude. I like it.
Yeah. So what have you been up to?
Not too much. Just got back from Nashville. Went out there for a week. Going back again tomorrow. I left my charger for the laptop out there. Got to go back and pick it up. I'm only going back for 2 more days. Then I'll be done for Tennessee for a while.
Nice.
Yeah, definitely interesting. Much more of a music town than a movie town. Never been. It's definitely pretty humid, so I had Gold Bond to thank for that.
Nice.
Outside of that, other than watching a couple shitty movies, that's about it with me. How about you?
Just sitting around, watching some stuff, doing some research and being ill.
Yep. You have a license to ill.
License to ill. Was going to go with Contagion or Outbreak, but, with the state I'm in. But this week we're going to do the Big Lebowski.
You needed a little pick-me-up.
Yeah, a little something exciting. So we're going to get to that in a bit. But first I have some news for you, Sean.
All right, let's do it.
So the first thing I have is Rambo 5.
Rambo 5?
Rambo 5.
We need another one?
Right. I mean, I know we're pretty big fans of First Blood, which is the first.
Yeah,
Rambo,
that movie's rad.
And that was kind of big when we were kids. We had that on VHS and watched that several times. But they just keep kind of churning them out. I know the 4th Rambo is incredibly violent.
Yeah, I took our mom to see that.
Oh.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't know
Surprised that the last take you.
Yeah, the last half hour, he's just going to be in the back of some pickup truck just murdering people by the dozens.
Yeah, that's all it was. Just wasting people with his gun.
Yeah. So they're doing a 5. What's the angle here?
Basically it's John Rambo. He's hanging out in the border, and I guess a friend of his daughter's been kidnapped by the Mexican cartel, so he springs into action and gets down to it.
Okay. Rambo 5.
Yeah,
do we know when we're getting another Rambo?
No, probably next year, though. Sylvester Stallone is, of course, tagged to direct it and star. Hopefully it's going to pretty much come out as him being older and a little... he's working on a ranch. I don't know why he's doing that, but...
Well, because after you've murdered so many people, you kind of just need like your alone time.
You get humbled a little bit.
Well, how many times have we seen the movie where, somebody is kind of like a legacy action star, they've seen all this action, and they kind of go into solitude, and then they get pulled back in because of some local thing? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much been done before. I don't know why he wants to do this. I think he was spurned on by reviving the Rocky Balboa franchise, which I thought Creed was a good movie.
Yeah, it was much better.
Yeah, he's going to hand the reins over, but Rambo, I don't know. I don't know if people are going to connect with this one, but we'll see.
All right, Rambo.
So we got Rambo, and so that's Sylvester Stallone, and then we have another one with Mel Gibson.
Okay, another untouchable.
Right, so Mel is going to, he's going to direct a World War II drama called Destroyer. This is his second World War II film in a row. He already did Hacksaw Ridge in 2016, so now he's going to do another one, which is basically going to focus on the Battle of Okinawa in April 1945. It's the screenplay is written by his girlfriend. It's her first screenplay, so wonder how that one got made,
oh boy.
Right? Yeah.
Oh boy.
I mean, if it does bad, then he's going to blame her, right?
Yeah, well, it could be good.
Yeah,
I mean, Hacksaw Ridge was okay, but it had too many I don't know if it was cheesy, but it just seemed too Hollywood in a few moments.
I felt that too, like a little heavy-handed than it should have been. Too
clean, too crisp, not dirty enough. There was just some scenes where it just felt like you're on a set. I don't know. Some scenes on that didn't really connect with me.
Yeah, I felt the same way. He might be doing a starring role in not the title role, but in the $6 billion Man, which is a Mark Wahlberg big screen reboot. I don't really remember the first one, but apparently that one's coming out soon. So if Mel does that, he's gonna kind of table this Destroyer movie for a little bit and then get down to it after he does $6 billion Man. He's also planning on filming Passion of the Christ sequel.
Oh, the Resurrection.
Yeah, so basically he's gonna be making a zombie movie.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's kind of what's going on with Mel, but
All right. Well, hopefully he can find his old artistic ways. He made some great movies, kind of had some that were not so much. Kind of came back in the public eye with Hacksaw Ridge and a couple cameos and in his image rebuilding. We'll see. Give him the benefit of the doubt, but not hold my breath.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good director. I just, like he's been kind of hampered by the public, debacles he's gotten into. So kind of see that the tabloids and this, public life, private life thing is really kind of affects your work.
Yeah.
So definitely has with him, but we'll see.
All right, cool.
Yeah, so that's all I have for news. Let's get down to what we've been watching this week. Sean, why don't you kick it off? What have you been watching this week?
I don't know if that's such a good idea. All right, so I have the 3 or 4. So I watched Sideways in the hotel. It was on TV. I haven't seen that movie in a long time. I really enjoyed it. Just very well written indie type of film. You remember that one? I know you know that movie.
Yeah, that was like I remember seeing Giamatti in other movies before that, but that was kind of his first like starring role.
Yeah, because he plays such like an authentic person in that movie. Compared to, I mean, he always is kind of a great actor, but like he's not much of a character actor. His shtick is his shtick, but that's where the temperamental little dude kind of comes out, and you kind of see that. And then it's got the other guy from Wings. What's his name?
Oh, Thomas Hayden Church.
Yeah, he's pretty great.
Yeah, he's good.
It's a good movie. I mean, it's definitely one of those wine movies, but wine is a narrative that's throughout the movie, but it's not really the point of the story. It's more about middle-aged men trying to find the next chapter of their life. So it's kind of where we're at. But so Sideways, I enjoyed that one. Caught up on Murder on the Orient Express.
Oh, okay.
Eventually, I mean, there was no Alaska had slim pickings for anything I was interested in seeing when I was on the airplane. So I watched that one with the guy's ridiculous mustache.
Yeah.
And I mean, the movie sucks. There's really no way about it. It didn't really hold my interest too long. The whole crime thing just doesn't really translate that well. Like the who done it, like we talked about this one before, so I'm not going to go into it. But definitely underwhelming. The payoff was underwhelming, and don't waste your time.
We said it was kind of like a modern day version of Clue.
Kind of, it is. It's just a little like cheesy. That. If you don't have to pay anything or it's free, then it's not bad. But
it's just like laying on the floor somewhere, just pick it up.
Yeah, if someone didn't put it in the red box they left on the ground, then consider it.
Yeah.
Wasn't a fan.
Ouch.
Yeah. And then 2 more real quick. Just already started getting back into season 2 of The Handmaid's Tale, which has already started off great. Again, I won't talk about details on this one, but if you guys haven't seen this show, it's a great show to check out on Hulu. Handmaid's Tale, it's 3 episodes in so far. It comes out every Wednesday. Love what it's got going on so far. Excellent. It's shot beautifully. Just the overall, it looks great. It's got a good story, kind of holds your interest. You don't know where it's going, and they're building in nice moments of tension. So the stakes are a little bit higher in this one.
Right.
You don't really know where it's going.
The book, or is it kind of going off on its own thing?
I don't know what the book has established, but right now it's got the main character who's kind of on the run, but not hasn't escaped yet. So it's a little bit more like in hiding, so to speak.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's been the main plot going so far. But after 3 episodes, it's starting to kind of build up new momentum in different areas, starting to develop more. Was getting a little bit slow. I was like, okay, we'll see how this goes. Yeah. And finally, I watched Twins.
What?
I apologize.
Why?
So
I mean, why'd you watch
it? Yeah. Great question. It was on super late on I think. I got one more. It was on super late on YouTube TV.
Okay.
And I actually kind of put it on just to kind of as a novelty. And I kind of watched it a little bit. And then when Arnold shows up in LA and it's got the music going, you know,
right,
the
little jazz.
Yeah, anyway.
All right.
And then I didn't watch it. I stopped. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to watch this. But then it came back a couple of weeks. It was like, continue watching. I was like, oh, all right. So let me see if I remember this one.
And then gave it another chance.
Yeah. So then I was like, I'm going to finish it. And that movie, I mean, it's funny for what it is, but it's so bad. It's especially with Arnold. That's where you kind of go like, uh-oh.
I think that's one of the first when he tried to do like some comedy.
I think that was the one. And Danny DeVito, I don't know how his stock was high enough to co-star with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think it kind of works for how they wrote it.
Because he's like the polar opposite of Arnold.
He is, but yeah, I guess that's probably why. I don't know. I mean, like that's one of those movies where I could never see it for the rest of my life, and I'll be happy.
Yeah.
But that did remind me because I mentioned YouTube. I finally watched all 10 episodes of Cobra Kai on YouTube because they're out now. So if you haven't seen it yet, Karate Kid, huge movie. I love the shit out of that movie in the 80s.
Do you need a YouTube subscription to this?
Not anymore. You can just watch it on YouTube.
I'm on it.
And it is awesome. I not what I thought.
Okay.
I actually wasn't going to give it that any time because I was like, you know what? The marketing looks a little cheesy. Looks like they're trying to just capture on some of the nostalgia. I was very, very skeptical. I was like, don't mess with Karate Kid. But it does a great job of kind of making fun of itself while building out a new story. I mean, it's still kind of cheesy. The fights are kind of cheesy, but it somehow just kind of works. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It just kind of works. They did a great job writing it. Johnny's character is actually really funny, and which I think is what makes it work. Is he's the one who's really bringing this all together.
How's he looking?
He's like 54 years old. He looks pretty weathered for 54.
Machio doesn't look bad though, huh?
But Machio's 57. That dude looks like he's 40. He's aged very well.
He's always looked pretty good.
Yeah, I mean they're bringing back music from the original, lots of different moments and scenes, so you kind of know stuff is coming up.
Is Elizabeth Shue in it, or would that be too much?
No.
How about golf and stuff?
Golf and stuff is in it.
Nice.
Yeah, everything is in it with the exception of Mr. Miyagi and Elizabeth Shue, but they're both referenced multiple times, and even photos are involved.
Right.
About everything else, I think almost everything else you can bring back. It's mainly just the only characters from the other ones that are actually in it is Ralph Macchio and Johnny and Daniel. Ralph Macchio, his Daniel LaRusso's mother is in it, I think, at some points.
Okay.
And I think that's it from the cast from the original.
Not the original owner of Cobra Kai Dojo?
No, he's not in it. He's referenced, though.
What would happen to that guy?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like you didn't really see him much else.
Patton Oswalt put a post up on Facebook or something really soon, really just talking about like how much he really enjoyed it.
I think I saw that.
And I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. Check it out.
I'm going to have to watch that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, that's it for me, man. What about you? What have you been watching?
Well, I've been watching two things. A couple months ago, we talked about this show coming out on AMC called The Terror, which I've been watching about 6 or 7 episodes in. I did read the book. It's a very large book, but it's very well paced and very engaging.
I remember this one.
Yeah, I really like the show so far. It's kind of like a cross between, let's say, Master and Commander, written by Stephen King. Okay, so it's based on a true event that happened when these British explorers are trying to find the Northwest Passage by going up through the North Pole, and they get stuck and they encounter some kind of a creature. And that's really all I want to say on that. But It is good. It's good at kind of drawing out the tension and just the savagery of what happens when people are kind of stranded in the middle of nowhere. And it's not so much just all about this monster or beast or whatever you want to call it, but it's really about how the terror is really just like the people when they're at their most desperate point. They're isolated. Obviously, they're starting to feel the effects of scurvy and like lead poisoning from these tin cans they're eating out of. So it's really really good show. The CGI on the monster is leaves a little to be desired, but that's a mere oversight compared to the acting, which is excellent, and just kind of the way a lot of things happen that you don't really expect. It does deviate a little bit from the book, but overall maintains the same tone. I definitely recommend it. I like it a lot.
This is on Netflix?
This is on AMC.
AMC. Okay, that's why I haven't seen it marketed.
Yeah.
I think I have that. I think it's on YouTube Red.
Yeah, check it out. The Terror. Yeah. I think it's only a 10-episode run. It's just pretty much straight from the book. I don't think they're going to do a second season. I'm about 3/4 of the way through it, so I'm looking forward to watching the rest of it.
All right, cool.
So I have that one, and then the second one I've been watching on Hulu as I've finally gotten around to watching season 1 of Legion. Have you seen this, Sean?
I've only heard of it. I actually don't know what it's about.
Okay, it's basically it's done by Noah Hawley, who's done the Fargo series. So I think he did this I think it was between season 2 and season 3 of Fargo, and it involves, well, according to the comic books, it's basically about the son of Professor X, whose name's Legion, and he's this
that's guy, right, okay,
schizophrenic guy. So really interesting show. It's very, I mean, the way I can describe it is like psychedelic. Not like what I expected. If you go into this thinking you're going to see some basic like superhero movie or show, you're in for a big rude awakening, because it's definitely different than that. Very surreal, like a lot of dream sequences and just really trippy stuff. Definitely worth checking out, though. I mean, the camera works great, and Noah Hawley is, as he was on Fargo, is known for being kind of an auteur TV director where he controls a lot of every aspect that's made. So you could tell he put like a lot of work and kind of attention to it. Very intelligent, very kind of crazy, trippy show. I definitely recommend it. Just
any notable actors or actresses that might recognize?
Not really. Like just a lot of people from. I think Aubrey Plaza from Parks and Rec is on it. The main character is Dan Stevens, who was in another movie I'd recommend called The Guest, which is kind of a B movie you could find on Netflix. You should check out. But no one really like that I've seen too much of. I think the daughter from Fargo 2 is in it as well. But it's got that kind of just a kind of a weird look to it, but it's very interesting.
Sure.
It draws you in, but you really have to be kind of patient with it because it does get kind of out there.
All right, The Legion.
Yeah, so
I'll have to add that to my list.
Yeah, season 1's on Hulu. I believe season 2 has already started. It's an FX show.
Okay. That's where I saw it marketed. Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's what I've been watching. Haven't seen Twins, but I'll probably get into Cobra Kai.
There you go.
Yeah. Sorry, Twins.
Sorry, Twins.
So that's what we've been watching this week. Let's get right down to our feature presentation, The Big Lebowski. So, The Big Lebowski is a 1998 American crime comedy film. It's written, produced, and directed by Joel and Ethan Coen. Starring Jeff Bridges as the Dude, who is a Los Angeles slacker and an avid bowler. And it's basically a movie about mistaken identity. The Dude learns that a millionaire who has the same name as him is an intended victim of a home invasion. And we just kind of get into a really crazy, convoluted plot that goes from there. I just kind of wanted to share my initial impressions of this film. I do remember going to see it in the theater, saw it in college, and like a lot of people who adore this movie to this day, really didn't know what to think of it the first time I saw it. It's a very odd, different type of film. So I wasn't like blown away by it the first time I saw it, but afterwards I'm still thinking of like the characters, lines of dialogue, just kind of things that pop out that are very quirky about this film. And of course, went back to it again, and to this day I love it. It's one of my favorite films. What do you think about this movie, Sean? Like the first time you saw it, and how it's either grown on you or not?
Yeah, what year did this movie come out?
This was 98.
So, yeah, I remember I don't think I saw this in the theater. It was probably a DVD. One of the HD movies, I think I also had it, but DVD I definitely remember. It was kind of at that point, my early 20s, where it didn't really stick with me right away because it was a little more intelligent for the type of movies I was watching at that time. I enjoyed it. I kind of appreciated it. I thought it was funny. But it really didn't hit home until I started watching it again more around like 2004, 2005, to where I could actually understand all the genius that's behind just the writing and the performance. Really, if I remember correctly, it's kind of my first true introduction to Jeff Bridges.
Mm-hmm.
I remember running into him at a Radiohead concert, and he was wearing the same sweater, and I thought it was some guy that was this was in Santa Barbara. I thought it was just some other guy, and then he started talking. I was like, no, that's him. It's like, that's how he is. And then you kind of realize that he's almost just playing himself.
Yeah.
And that's when it really started just to kind of appreciate the performances, which I'll let you go through. But, and then I've seen it multiple times since then. It's like every single time you see it, I pick up on something new, or I just start to appreciate it even more. The movie is almost perfect. I can't think of anything about it I would change.
Yeah, and then Roger Ebert, who typically kind of gives scathing reviews when he was around, gave this, surprisingly to me in my research, found he gave it a 4 out of 4, and put it on his like best movies of all time list. So, when it came out, it received a lot of mixed reviews and was pretty much a disappointment at the box office. But over time, like I think both of us, it just kind of caught on to gradually and became this really like organic thing. So I just wanted to kind of take you through and our listeners through some of the basic parts of this movie. Not so much the plot, because if you're listening to this, you're probably already familiar with it. I don't want to ruin it if you haven't seen it, but if you have not seen this film, definitely give it a try. And if you don't like it the first time, try it again. I mean, it might stick to you the second time.
Yeah, it's one of those movies where if you haven't seen it, you definitely know about the dude, and you've seen memes from it. Just the pop culture of this movie is very heavy. I can't imagine anybody that, especially if you're into movie podcasts, that hasn't seen this or haven't heard of it. So,
right,
I'd say go for it.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, books have been written about it. There's Lebowski festivals that occur all over the country that pretty much champion this film. So it's definitely like of our time, I think the biggest like cult movie that's come out. And oddly enough, the Coen brothers don't really think too much of it. They said, they were kind of surprised that people take so much stock in a movie that they didn't really consider to be like a big movie for them, which I find interesting. So, but it's interesting in doing the research, like how much of this movie is kind of written for specific people in mind. So I'll just kind of go through the cast and kind of, say who the parts were written for. There's John Goodman, plays Walter Sobchak, who's the dude's friend. That part was written for him. Julianne Moore, Steve Buscemi, that part was written for him. David Huddleston plays the real Lebowski. I've only seen that guy in the Wonder Years. I think he played Kevin's grandfather. He's great in this one. John Turturro plays Jesus Quintana. That part's written for him. Philip Seymour Hoffman, Sam Elliott, another one written. Tara Reid, David Thewlis, who went on to play VM Varga in Fargo Season 3. And then we have Flea. Who's Flea, Sean?
Yeah, Chili Peppers.
Yeah, so Flea, every now and then he'll kind of step off his bass gig and do some acting work. So he's actually plays a pretty funny role in this movie too. So the film is pretty much like the Coen brothers are always known for doing like very weird, quirky films, always set in like, a time period. This one takes place in Los Angeles, right around the time that the first Gulf War started. So Joel Cohen, who kind of did a lot of the work on this one, said the film is loosely inspired by the writing of Raymond Chandler, who wrote these detective novels. He says it deals with characters trying to unravel a mystery as well as having a hopelessly complex plot that's ultimately unimportant. And that's kind of how Lebowski is. It's like after a while that the plot is just it kind of runs dry. Like the mystery or whatever they're trying to figure out, it just kind of runs dry, and it's not like there's no really big payoff in this movie. End of the day, the movie's really kind of about nothing more than like a friendship between these two characters, which I'll talk about in a little bit. The score was composed by Carter Burwell, who is a longtime collaborator of the Coen brothers. And one of our favorite cinematographers, Roger Deakins, is also in this doing the camera work. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he did a lot of the done a lot of the Coen brothers movies too. Recently won a well deserved Oscar. The Coens who've said they don't feel like doing sequels. Well, I don't know if you know this or not, but there is a spin-off of this movie I guess it's coming out this year. Do you know anything about this, Sean?
I mean, I've heard over the years just discussion about spin-offs, sequels, and can we take Turturro's character and do something with him or what? But I've never really paid too much attention to him because I think the Coen brothers kind of like it as it is. But I'm curious to see what do you have to say about it.
It's John Turturro, who played, like I said, Jesus, who's described by Goodman's character as a pederast. He'll be in a movie coming out called Going Places. It was filmed last year, and Turturro is not only starring in it, but he wrote it and directed it. So I guess he feels pretty strongly about this character.
And he's playing the same character?
Same character. I have no idea what it's about, but yeah, I think he's playing the same character with some other people in it too. So,
Any involvement with the Coen brothers?
The only involvement is that the Coen brothers gave him their blessing to use the character, but otherwise there's no other involvement. They're not even producing it or anything.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, they like Turturro a lot. He's been in a lot of their films, so I think they trusted his judgment to use his character the best he could. So when you look at where do we get these characters from because they're so kind of unique. So the different places, the Jeff Bridges character not only infuses Bridges as a character, but it was also based on a guy the Coens knew called Jeff Dowd, who he was a film producer and also a political activist. This guy liked to drink White Russians, and he was also known as the Dude. So they are kind of like walking encyclopedias, the Coen brothers. So they kind of meet a lot of people and just shelve them later and then infuse them into the characters they make. The Dude's also partly based on another guy named Peter Exline, who was a Vietnam War veteran, lived in a dumpy apartment, much like Bridges does in the movie, and he was also proud of a rug he had that tied the room together. Exline met the Coen brothers back when they were doing their first movie, and then he basically told them all kinds of stories from his life, including one about a friend of his named Louis Abernathy, who would go on to inspire Walter. And this guy became a private investigator eventually and then helped him track down a high school kid who stole his car. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, it's a scene for the movie. So they were just kind of putting all this, all this stuff that they got from this guy into the film. As in the film, Exline's car was impounded by the LA Police Department, and then Abernathy later found homework under the passenger seat of the car. And that's how they tracked it down to this kid that stole it. This Exline guy was also in an amateur softball league, but the Coens changed it to bowling in the film because they felt that, bowling is more of a social sport. You can sit around and drink and smoke and engage in this inane conversation, which does happen quite a bit. So that's kind of like some of the characters in real life that influenced the Dude and the creation of this character, as was Jeff Bridges. Another guy named John Milius is a filmmaker. He's written like Conan the Barbarian. He wrote Apocalypse Now. Um, he's really kind of one of the main inspirations for Walter. He has a love of guns and the military, so that character really influenced the character of Walter, and that's how they pretty much made it from those two characters. Um, Julianne Moore's character is based on an artist, real life artist who works naked from a swing, and is also based on Yoko Ono. And the character,
okay, that makes
yeah,
sense.
right. It's kind of weird, that kind of performance art kind of stuff. The character of Jesus, Quintana, was inspired. The Coens, that when they first saw John Turturro, it was in a play in 1988, and Turturro was playing a pedophile type character. So that they said, if we cast this guy, let's eventually make him into a pedophile type character, which they eventually did. I mean, he's been in a lot of their movies, but this movie they really kind of just used that first performance and infused it into his character in this movie. So, the structure again, like I said, was influenced by mainly detective fiction, so that's why they set the film in Los Angeles. They also have this voiceover that's done in the film by Sam Elliott, which is kind of like this the audience substitute. It speaks off screen, of course, and then it's kind of weird how we hear this narrative, and later on we actually meet the person in the film. So it's just kind of this very surreal type of moment. So that's kind of pretty much like what we have as far as the characters that go into the film. And then getting down to the screenplay, they did a movie, one of their first, well, not one of their first movies, but early film of the Coen brothers is Barton Fink, and they wrote Big Lebowski around the same time. Their big guy that they wanted in the film was John Goodman because they had written that character specifically for him. At the time, Goodman was on Roseanne, and Jeff Bridges was making a Wild Bill Hickok movie, so they were both kind of tied up. So they couldn't do Lebowski when they wanted to, so instead they went ahead and did Fargo, which is another amazing movie they've done, one of my favorites, and kind of shelved Lebowski for a minute, and then after they did Fargo, they turned their attention to Lebowski. They wanted to do L.A. because they could have said it anywhere, but they decided L.A. was the best place because a lot of the characters that inspired the film had come from Los Angeles. Also, L.A. in the film is almost like another character where it just kind of has this very much a cultural influence on all the characters in the film.
Yeah, it's a good location.
Yeah, and there's actually a book I have that's on this movie, and there's a whole chapter dedicated to the book where you can take a virtual tour of like all the places that are in the movie and look around LA. A couple places like the bowling alley have been torn down, but you can still, if you want to, and if you're bored on a weekend, go out to LA and check out some of these locations for the hardcore only.
Of course.
So when they start writing this script, the Coens, as they do with a lot of the things they write and the way they work, is they work together and they almost, eerily in sync how they work together. They wrote basically 40 pages of Lebowski, and then they let it sit for a long time before they finished it. This is kind of a normal process for them because they say that sometimes they get to a part of the writing process where they encounter a problem, and they just more or less shelve it for a bit and then come back to the script after letting it marinate for a little while. And they do that, basically to get more pieces involved and kind of infuse other works into other movies that they do. If that makes any sense. So, but the screenplay, the way they write their screenplays is, which I'll get to in a little bit, is everything you see in this movie, and this is another impressive thing, is straight out of the script. Nothing whatsoever is improvised. When Jeff Bridges got his early version of the script and he called Goodman and says, well, when can we do rewrites with these guys? When can we suggest things? Goodman, who had worked with the Coens on a couple movies before, told Jeff Bridges it's not the way the Coens work. Like everything that's in the screenplay is basically what you're going to do when you do the film. And even, there's scenes where the dude's saying like, dude, all that is in the screenplay too. So nothing is improvised. Everything is storyboarded, which I found to be quite impressive when
Yeah,
looking at the
it
film.
seems like it's improv. It's so
Oh yeah,
authentic.
it is, and it's like they have. If you've ever seen interviews with the Coens, they're like the most square guys you've ever seen. They're like from Minnesota.
Yeah, they totally are.
It's like, what do these guys know about stoner culture in Los Angeles? But it seems like they have an ear for like different, cultures or even different time periods, to where, like you said, it sounds improvised. It sounds very natural and authentic. So that's kind of where the screenplay came from. Um, and they felt that, we're not deviating from this at all. So after Fargo, they started Lebowski with a budget of 15 million. Um, Joel Cohen said, "We tend to write both for people we know and have worked with, and then there's parts that we go in there we don't really know who's going to play who." So they said they did write for, um, a lot of the people that they wrote the screenplay for, but Jeff Bridges, they weren't sure if they can get him or not, and they actually did. And when they found out about Jeff Bridges, he related to the fact that he was kind of a lot like this character, and kind of asked, if he couldn't change the screenplay. He did make some suggestions. So what Jeff Bridges did, going back to your story, is he went to his own closet and he picked out clothes that he thought the dude might wear. So pretty much all the clothes that you see the dude wearing in the film actually do belong to Jeff Bridges. And I don't know how long after this movie you saw him, Sean, but he, probably just kept all those clothes anyway. So,
Well, we were at that concert. I mean, it was the Amnesiac tour, I think, for Radiohead. So,
right.
um, yeah, I don't know what year that was. That was probably 2002, maybe 2001, 2002,
Yeah. I mean,
somewhere
but
around
everything
there.
like, the bathrobe, he wears these like sandals. They're called jellies. I think they're like women's flip flops,
Yeah, you see
which,
him a lot, like in the Middle East and stuff.
right. So, he's a big fan of those. But yeah, so it kind of gives us authenticity where the Coens allowed Bridges to like bring his own self into this film, which I think is, fairly interesting. Um, so that's a little bit about, all the cinematography was done by Roger Deakins. He discussed the look of the film. Most of the film was filmed with like a wide angle, except for one of the dream sequences where they had to really heavily choreograph it. There is like a really crazy dream sequence where there's some dance number involved.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because that's the point where if it's your first Coen Brothers movie, that's where you kind of realize there's something very different about those two.
Oh yeah,
Uh, um, it's because it comes out of nowhere, but it does a great job of kind of like putting you inside the mind of the character a little bit.
yeah,
Um, I don't know. I thought it was just great because when you first see it, you're like, "What's going on? This is kind of strange." Then you kind of miss the whole point if you take it at the surface level. But I
right.
think it's a very clever sequence that kind of helps disrupt the pace of the film, while adding a little bit more depth to just the kookiness that the dude is.
Yeah, and if you pay attention to those dream sequences, like all the articles and little things involved are all from earlier scenes in the film. So, I mean, there's like obviously like Saddam Hussein is giving out the bowling shoes, and you see him on television early in the film, but a lot of little nuances that they kind of play with that bring it to life in that way too. But yeah, that dream sequence is pretty crazy. They did that at a converted airplane hangar, and Hollywood Star Lanes was where they did all the bowling sequences for about 3 weeks. According to the Coens, it really didn't have to direct Bridges that much. The only thing that they would have to do was Bridges would go up to him before a scene and say, "Do you think the dude burned one on the way over?" And if they said yes, then Jeff would go off in a corner and rub his eyes to get him all bloodshot. So that's pretty much all they did, um, as far as getting him direction. Otherwise, they just pretty much let their actors take it from what they want to and wherever they go. The soundtrack, like I mentioned earlier, was composed by Carter Burwell, who's a veteran of all the Coen Brothers movies. I think he still is. Um, and they just kind of let him pick out like a lot of the other stuff, but they also asked this guy named T-Bone Burnett, who he would later work with them on "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou," to pick out songs specifically for the soundtrack because they wanted different genres of music but they also wanted stuff that was kind of assigned to individual characters. If that makes any sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So, some characters have like almost like a certain theme. Obviously, like Sean, what's Jeff Bridges' theme in this movie if you had to pick a band or a type of music?
Oh, probably Credence.
Right. So, so Credence is the one. Um, but, I'm sure as like when you go through this process, you have to secure rights to a lot of these songs. So there's one song that's a cover of a Rolling Stones song, and the guy who owned it was a former Rolling Stones manager, and he wanted $150,000 for it. So T-Bone Burnett convinced him to watch an early cut of the film, and when it got to the part where the dude says, "I hate the fucking Eagles," Klein stands up and says, "That's it, you can have the song." That was beautiful. So he basically gave him outright after seeing that one scene.
Nice.
Right, so.
Not the Eagles, man.
Yeah, right. So, interestingly enough, the Eagles, that song, one of the songs is playing early in the film, but it's all in Spanish. And that's when we first meet the Jesus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So first premiere of the film, January 18th, 1998. Didn't do so well. It grossed $5.5 million its opening weekend. Grossed $17 million in the U.S., which is just above its $15 million budget. So didn't really do that well. It's just because a lot of people didn't really know what to think of the movie. They said, well, the guys that did Fargo, who made this like Oscar-winning movie that's just like a beautiful, almost foreign film, and then they go and do this movie, which is basically like a stoner comedy, more or less, right? But over time, as we mentioned, a lot of people started catching on to the film, and since its release, it's become more or less a cult classic. So
I think it's like the definitive cult classic. If you had to like describe what a cult classic is to somebody,
sure,
this is a movie that's it, because you wouldn't think that it wasn't successful when it came out.
Right, because for other generations, it might have been like Rocky Horror Picture Show, which I completely don't get, that. But this movie, I think, would be considered our cult classic. Every year we have Lebowski Fests that are annual, starting all over the country. It's where they, basically set at a bowling alley. If they do the festival, they're going to have costumes, trivia, contests, and things like that.
Everybody shows up in a robe.
Right. And then they get like a lot of the characters from the film to show up, whether it's like the main characters or it's like really minor characters that appear in the film. So that's kind of like one phenomena that's spread from this movie. I don't know if you know this or not, but a religion is sprung from this movie.
I have heard of this, yes.
It's called Dudism.
Yep.
It founded in 2005, also known as the Church of the Latter-day Dude.
So dumb.
Right. And it's ordained over 220,000 Dudist priests all over the world.
Dudist priest, that sounds like a band.
Right. So I don't know if that's a tax write-off or whatever, but, 2 species of African spiders are named after the film and the main character. So I'll try to pronounce these.
Do it. Let's hear it.
Anelosimus Big Lebowski and Anelosimus Dude. And those are both found in 2006. Also, an extinct Permian conifer tree is named after the film in honor of its creators. The first species described within this is called a Lebowskia grandifolia. It's a type of tree. So, yeah.
Okay, so those are definitely some of the most unique facts we've featured on this show.
Right, where a movie inspires like science and stuff, So, there is some other little things I wanted to mention before I wrap this up. John Goodman stated in a Rolling Stone magazine interview, like I already said, that the only improvised dialogue in the film is when the dude calls the Big Lebowski a human paraquat. That's really the only improvised line to make it into the final film. Every man, every dude was scripted and put in the film.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you mention Steve Buscemi earlier?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, he's kind of like the for me, what I like about it is because obviously there's that relationship between, Walter and the dude, and that kind of keeps it going. But really,
Right.
his character really triggers a lot between the two of them.
Yeah.
And you kind of notice that when he's no longer in the film, they kind of don't really know how to interact with just each other.
Sure.
I don't know. It's just a very interesting trio that they kind of have going on.
Right, and much like how the rug ties the room together, maybe Donnie ties them together.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
it's this very unlikely friendship where the dude is this like left wing hippie, and Walter is this right wing like gun nut, and you've
yeah.
never. And the movie's really about those two guys. I mean, everything that happens in the film is really kind of silly and absurdist and incidental. But when you get down to it, it's about the relationship between these two characters that is really quite unlikely, which I think is kind of cool. I mean, maybe people in Congress need to watch this movie and say, "Hey, we can get along." Hey,
Yeah.
it's idealistic, but it's like it can happen. Yeah, that is interesting. It's also interesting how like the dude never really pays attention to Donnie. Never really gives him any kind of attention, but it's always Walter who calls him out and makes him feel like shit. So
Because he tried to insert himself in the conversations and stuff, and the guys are
right,
not having any of it.
like a child who wanders in the middle of a movie.
You're like a child. Yeah, so dumb.
We could start quoting this film. We're not going to do
There's
that.
so many good ones.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the beautiful. Like, I'll use some of these lines in like everyday dialogue, and it's not even know I'm doing it. I mean, I don't have any like specific examples, but sometimes I'll just drop lines into stuff without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Early draft of the script, the dude's source of income was revealed because you don't really know he doesn't really have a job. He's kind of like Kramer, he's just kind of hanging out. You're not really sure how he makes a living.
He just is.
Yeah, he's the dude. Early draft of the script said he was the heir to the inventor of the Rubik's Cube.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, but
does he have a name? Dumb question, but does he have a name in this movie?
It's Jeff Lebowski.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah,
Jeff. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. The dude says "man" 147 times in this movie, which is about 1.5 times a minute.
Man,
which is interesting.
Yeah.
Whereas the F word is used, or a variation of the F word is used about 292 times.
As much as a Tarantino movie.
Oh yeah. So what's funny is, and we can talk about this on other movies, but when they put movies on TV, they have to clean it up. Obviously.
What'd they do for this one?
Well, first of all, watching this on television is quite an experience because when they curse as much as they do, it's like you could totally tell they're editing it up. But one notable one, there's a scene where they go to the kid's house and accuse him of stealing the car. And Walter says, "This is what happens when you fuck a stranger in the ass." So the TV version is, get ready, "This is what happens when you find a stranger in the Alps."
It doesn't even work.
Right, which makes no sense.
Yeah.
But, it's frequently cited as one of the most creative edits made for a film to be aired on television.
Well, it works. They got it. Yeah, they did it.
That's what happens when you find a stranger in the Alps.
I got to start using that.
Yeah, just get people shaking their heads at you.
Yeah, like what?
The dude's line, "The dude abides," is a Bible reference. Ecclesiastes 1:4. "One generation passes away and another generation comes, but the earth abides forever."
Okay.
Referring to how the dude, much like the earth, can weather change and chaos around him but still remain the same. There's a scene where Jesus has to go door to door sharing that he's a convicted sex offender. You might notice he has a large bulge in his pants. That was formed by a bag of birdseed that Turturro placed in there. Why he's wearing tight pants, I have no idea.
Yeah, not a good move.
Yeah. One cool thing about the movie is it has what I call, or what you could call circular dialogue, whereas you'll hear stuff and then later on it'll be repeated mostly by the dude. So, for example, early in the film when he's checking out at Ralph's and he's writing a backdated check for 68 cents for a carton of half and half.
Yeah.
You know, like he hears George Bush say, "This aggression will not stand," and then later on he says that again. You know, Brant tells the dude that her life is in your hands, and then dude repeats that. So a lot of this stuff keeps happening like over and over, which I think is really funny. It's just kind of like this circular dialogue that's repeated. Jesus says, I fucked you in the ass," and then one of the nihilists says it later.
Yeah, he says, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like a lot. Like you really have to kind of like pay attention to this movie because there's a lot of stuff that keeps coming back. You know, the most repeated phrase is, "What the F are you talking about?" It's used by the dude in the first scene, and then it's repeated by the dude, Walter, Donnie, and the private detective. The word "dude" is used 161 times in this movie.
I would expect nothing less.
Right, exactly. One scene we did talk about with Pulp Fiction, how they have to sometimes you have to reverse and film backwards stuff if they can't get it right. You know, like when Travolta plunged the adrenaline into Mia's chest. Well, there's one scene in this movie where they had to do that. It was they're throwing the briefcase out of the car in a perfect arc, and they kept trying it and they couldn't do it. So after several failed attempts to throw it out, the driver was told to back up while an off-screen crew member threw the suitcase at the driver. And then they filmed it and then rewound it, and that's how they pretty much got it to look the way it did. So
simple. Yeah. Seems like something that shouldn't be an issue, but throwing a briefcase while driving, I get it.
Yeah, so that's the Big Lebowski. One of my
That's what you got?
That's what I got. That's one of my favorites. Continue to watch it over and over. And yeah, I don't know. Anything you want to say about this film or any tidbits you got
no, I
for
definitely think it's. Where do you think it sits with the Coen Brothers, catalog so far? You think it's their best?
I mean, if you want to go with best, like I would say for me, Fargo is their best, which I would like to take on in another episode. But I mean, this one would probably be second best. But they have a lot of good movies, but they also have some movies that aren't so great.
Yeah.
Especially recently. They haven't really done anything recently, I think, that is, really kind of cemented them still as like great filmmakers.
Their last one that I saw was just garbage.
Hail Caesar was
the worst.
I don't know what they were going for. I don't know. I mean, I hope they can. And I know they wrote Suburbicon, and that movie wasn't that great either. They did executive produce the Fargo series, but I don't think they had like a whole bunch of input on everything there. I think it's just, I think their name's attached to it because it's kind of their franchise. But other than that, it was Noah Hawley did everything. So, but yeah, it's definitely up there for me.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, let's see how much you know it. I got some trivia for you.
Okay.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
All right. What is the very first spoken word in the film?
Ooh.
Not ooh.
The first spoken word, the first.
Let's say
sentence.
it's either going to be way, once, there, or this.
Way.
Yes, way out west. There was this fella. All right, good job.
Thank you.
How much money does the dude write on the check made out to Ralph's?
Isn't it like 68 cents?
It is 69 cents. Yeah.
69 cents. Okay.
Yeah, and it's dated on September 11th too, which is kind of interesting.
Right.
He's got his club card.
It's backdated like a year and a half before this thing happens in the movie, which is funny too.
It's the worst. What does the dude pull out of the toilet? His joint, sunglasses, a half and half carton, or a dollar bill?
Sunglasses.
Yep, that is correct. His sunglasses.
Nice.
What's written on the back of Donnie's shirt?
Oh.
It is Carabastos Deli, Donald Bowling North, Park Cleaners South Side, or Theodore Carabastos and Co.
Is it Theodore Carabastos and Co.?
No, Park Cleaners South Side.
Ah, that's an obscure one.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
What city is the key from in Lebowski Manor? Glendale, Pasadena, Cerritos, or Malibu?
That would be the key to the city of Pasadena.
That is correct. How much does Brant have to pay in order to quote unquote watch? $100, $10, $50, or $1,000?
1,000?
It is $100.
Ah,
That's Philip Seymour's great in that scene too.
I love him in that movie.
Which of the following is not used to describe Jesus Quintana? Pedophile, sex offender, pervert, or pederast?
Sex offender?
Pedophile.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. What kind of gun did Walter bring to the drop-off? A semi-automatic machine gun, an Uzi, a sawed-off shotgun, or a .44 Magnum?
Was it an Uzi?
It is an Uzi.
Yeah, it's the drop-off.
Who's in charge of scheduling the bowling league games? You've got Burke Halter, Bert Halton, Burke Alton, or Bert Halter?
Is it Bert Halter?
Yeah, Burke Halter, yeah.
Okay.
Burke, B-U-R-K.
Burke.
They had two of them on here. One was Burke and then Bert.
Okay.
So, yeah, a little interesting there.
Huh.
According to Maude Lebowski, what word makes men uncomfortable?
Is it vagina?
It is.
Yeah.
Vagina.
Vagina.
What do you know the name of the porno that is featured on the film?
Is it log jamming?
Yep.
It's a Jackie Treehorn production.
Log jamming.
and the cable guy in that
He's
quote
from
unquote
Fargo.
movie, yeah, it's the guy from Fargo.
Yeah. What time does Walter claim he can get a tow for the dude?
Oh,
Noon, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, or 1 p.m.?
I get you a tow here by 3 o'clock.
Yep.
Right? Fucking amateurs.
So dumb. I'd get you a tow by 3.
Yeah. With toenail polish.
Yeah. When the dude's taking a bath, he's got the candles and everything.
Right.
What's he listening to? Is it whale sounds, relaxation collections, the whale song, relaxation sounds, song of the whale, ultimate relaxation, or song of the whales, relaxation collection?
Oh, how would you know that?
I don't know.
Song of the Whale Relaxation Collection.
Almost song of the whale, ultimate relaxation. It must have to. It must say it or something like a radio broadcast or something.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, it's because it says it on the cassette tape that he has sitting next to it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Let's see. What does Donnie typically drink? Most notably when he's at the scene where they're at the bar in the bowling alley. Is he drinking Miller High Life, Slice, Diet Coke, or Squirt?
Is it Slice?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, Orange Slice. There it is.
Nice.
What is the name of Autobahn's one and only album?
Oh crap. It's
Nagelbet, Bet Nagel, Bagel Net, or Nagelbet?
Is it Nagelbet?
Nagelbet, yes.
We
All
believe
one
in
word.
nothing.
Nagelbet.
We believe in nothing, Lebowski.
Yeah, here's a real tough one.
All right.
What's the dude's license plate number? 376 PCE, DLB 472, TCB 420, or Duder?
TCB 420.
No, 376 PCE. It's the
Wow.
only one that doesn't, yeah. Dude, that'll be, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's all tied on. How many times does Walter scream "fuck a stranger" in the ass? 16, 7, 4, or 9?
Oh man, that's
What
a
do
lot.
you think? I know.
That's a lot. 16.
4.
That's it.
Yeah, maybe in that particular scene.
Okay.
All right, so fill in the blanks. Mr. Treehorn treats blank like blank, man.
Mr. Treehorn treats objects like women, man.
Yep. Which of the following is not true? The dude was one of the original authors of the Port Huron Statement. The dude was a big advocate for medical marijuana. The dude was part of the Seattle 7. Or the dude was involved in the music business with Metallica.
What was the second one?
The dude was a big advocate for medical marijuana.
That one.
That's correct.
Yeah.
All right. So a few more on here. We got, let's see, what do most of the Germans order at the diner?
I can tell you this.
All right.
Is it lingonberry pancakes?
Yep. The Germans.
Right.
According to the dude, what is Walter's religion? Protestantism, atheism, Judaism, or Catholicism?
Judaism.
Oh, Catholicism.
Oh, okay. Catholicism.
Yeah, Catholicism.
Okay.
According to Jesus Quintana, what day will he fuck Walter in the ass?
I'll come back and fuck you in the ass on Sunday.
Let's see.
No, on Saturday. On Saturday.
Wednesday.
Wednesday. Okay.
Yeah. Wednesday.
It's a great character. I hope they can play that off in a whole movie.
I know. How much money were Donnie and the dude willing to give Autobahn? $18, $4, almost $5, $22 and change, or just a little under 13.
A little under 13.
22 and change.
Autobahn.
Yeah, Autobahn. Do you know Donnie's full name?
Is it Theodore Karabatsos? Or Theodore Herschel Karabatsos?
Theodore Donald Karabastos.
Okay.
What is the last spoken word in the film? Is it friends, adios, sarsaparilla, or abides?
Sarsaparilla?
Yeah, it is.
You wouldn't happen to have one of them sarsaparillas, would you?
And then it's over.
Yep.
Sarsaparilla. All right. Nice job. Those are
Thank
some
you.
tough ones in there, but
Yeah.
I kind of figured we have to. You know, given your dudism and all.
Oh, yeah. I
All
passed
right.
the test.
Well, nice job, Ryan.
Thank you. That's the Big Lebowski.
I think we're gearing up for our sci-fi one again. I know we've been hyping that for a little bit, but I know that's around the corner. Why don't you tell the kind folks out there on the interwebs where they can find us?
Well, you can find everybody. You can find us at Facebook.
Bam.
Find us on YouTube.
Yeah.
You can find us on Instagram.
You know.
You can find us on Twitter.
Yeah, on
Find
Twitter.
us on Twitter.
Yeah, or head over to the Patreon and sign up. We've got a couple new rewards packages there over at patreon.com/theharschreview.
Also have our own Harsch review page.
Yeah, we have our own website.
Check it out.
Not a page. That'd be like a periodical, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah. We have our own website.
Yes. Yeah, just go to Ask Jeeves, type in the Harsch Review, and it'll find it.
Ask Chiefs, yeah.
No. Yeah, I don't know why I was just thinking about that stupid site the other day. Yeah, just open up your Netscape and go to Ask Jeeves.
They're reliable,
I know.
Like,
All right,
I'm
well,
never asking Jeeves this.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And we'll get back to you next week. So again, thanks again for all you guys' support and love. We definitely appreciate the engagement. If you haven't done so, join up on our Facebook group, and we're going to start putting some polls and some questions out there. Just need a few more bodies, and then we'll have a good old time. So that'll do it for me. Why don't you take us home, Ryan?
All right. This is the Harsch Review. My name is William Neeson, and with me is my brother.
Yeah. I'm just Sean this week. Nothing exciting.
And thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.
Have a good one.